Okay, I could see Durant making it. I just don't think it's going to happen. Final event of the night, the one that everyone anticipates. We've already been over the slam dunk competition.
Blake Griffin. Let's just
Yeah,
move on. Blake Griffin.
it's going to be Blake Griffin. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The only way he
DeRozan
loses
is
is
going
if
to
he
have
misses
a good
everything.
night.
Yeah,
DeRozan is going to have a good night.
I think I could see those two in the final round, but it's going to be Blake Griffin hands down. So, like you said, we're just going to move on from there. On from there, we go to Sunday, where we go to the actual All Star game. No, we're
Hold
not.
on
We're
one
not
second.
gonna. No,
I want to go
no,
back real quick.
we're not going to the Shooting Stars competition because no one
No, I
cares.
don't. I'm not talking about the shooting stars. I saw a quick note here, and this is kind of interesting. Apparently, during the dunk contest, every player or every competitor is going to have a dunk coach.
Is it actually during it, or was this just someone that they were provided before the actual event?
I think it's either during the event or before the event. But I mean, it's. I just thought it was kind of interesting because of the guys that were chosen as the mentors. Because I mean, Kenny the Jet Smith is Blake Griffin's mentor. Why is Blake Griffin learning from Kenny Smith?
Well, why is Javal McGee learning from Chris Webber?
Apparently, they want to show big guys with bad knees, how it's done.
Apparently,
Uh, but Ibaka is mentored by his teammate. I mean,
Kevin
really?
Durant. Yeah,
And DeMar DeRozan has the most ridiculously good mentor in Daryl Dawkins. Are you kidding me? Like the rest of these, these coaches are kind of a joke, and you get Daryl Dawkins for DeMar DeRozan. This
yeah.
is ridiculous.
Considering he was called Dawkins was called Sir Slam, Doctor Duncanstein, and Chocolate Thunder, given he created those all himself. But those were some of his nicknames. It would almost put DeRozan, solidly in second place of this contest.
Okay, so
Okay, so for Sunday, we finally have all the rosters. We've already went over the starters. One thing we should note in the starters, since Yao Ming cannot be a starter since he's not even playing in the NBA right now, Tim Duncan has officially been named his replacement as starter.
oh, has he?
Yeah, it popped up on ESPN about
Oh,
20 minutes ago. But I think Greg Popovich got to pick that starter, so that was probably why.
yeah, the coaches do get to pick any
So
replacements for who's actually going to start. And I know we've said this before, and we'll say it again. Tim Duncan, I think in this point in his career, is being given the pass for lifetime achievement. Duncan is having a great year. Don't get me wrong. I don't see over some other choices why he was considered first.
this'll be my one thing, and then we can just go to something else. Tim Duncan makes everyone else around him better, and given the fact that he is older and he can't dominate like he used to, he has taken the ability to create for everyone else, and that is what has turned him into as dominant of a player as he is this year. And then you add in the fact that Popovich is the head coach for the Western squad. Duncan's going to get the pick either way. So
Yeah,
you just there's everyone looks at points and rebounds for some of these players, but you also just have to look at the fact that it's like the Bill Russell thing. Bill Russell wasn't amazing. I mean, he was, but
no, just be
but he
quiet.
made everyone else so much better around him that it took his greatness level to a whole nother tier because of that. And I think that's where Duncan is right now in his career.
And I we talked about this a little bit before the show, and this is just a short side note. But congratulations, for Bill Russell receiving one of the most prestigious awards, the Presidential Medal of Merit. One of the greatest medals that any civilian in the United States can receive, and it really is one of those things that I think is important for the NBA because he really put a lot of things for civil rights for the future of the NBA, and was a great representative in his period for the United States. I think he definitely deserved it. So
Completely agree. Completely agree. On to the game. we never got a chance to go over the reserves, so we can kind of go over those real fast. For the Eastern Conference, we have Ray Allen, Chris Bosh, Kevin Garnett, Al Horford, Joe Johnson, Paul Pierce, and Rajon Rondo. We have 4 Celtics, 2 Hawks, and a Miami Heat on the bench, which gives us 4 Celtics, 2 Hawks, 3 Miami Heat, and then a Magic, Nick, and Bull. I didn't like this when I first saw it, and I even wrote a blog post about it on our blog for this podcast. But then I got to looking, and I got to thinking, sadly, these are the best players in the Eastern Conference. They just so happen to all be on the same team. And the snubs from the Eastern Conference, you can say Josh Smith, Atlanta Hawk. It's really hard pressed to find people because I don't like Chris Bosh and I'm not a huge Joe Johnson fan this year. All-star level, I don't think so. Unfortunately, the East is just that weak. And Boozer would have been on here over Chris Bosh, but Boozer missed most of the first half.
Well, Noah would have been on here, and I really think if he had been healthier, you can look at the big man on the Bucks, Andrew Bogut, as being there instead of Bosh, or instead of I don't know. I see Bogut as a legitimate all-star, but like I told somebody this week, Andrew Bogut's nickname should be would have been an all-star a long time ago if he had been healthy. I mean, the guy really plays extremely well when he's healthy, but he's rarely healthy, and that's what has killed the Bucks. I mean, the Bucks are a talented team who just can't get it together because their stars get injured too much.
Then on the Western Conference side, we have Paul Gasol, Manu Ginobili, Blake Griffin, Dirk Nowitzki, Russell Westbrook, Darren Williams, and Kevin Love, who is replacing Yao Ming. So with those teams, it's hard to say anyone was snubbed. It really is.
Western Conference has the bigger competition as far as snubbies.
Exactly, because if you look at it, Love was initially snubbed, but he's in, so you can't call him snubbed anymore. Zach Randolph was left out. LaMarcus Aldridge was left out, and Steve Nash. Those are my 4 guys that I thought were snubs to begin with, and all 4 guys play on bad teams, and that really hurts their chances of getting in.
But they don't play on bad teams. All 3 or all of those teams are looking like they're going to go to the playoffs this year. So I can't say that the player who plays on the worst team in this entire All-Star game is still Kevin Love.
When did the Suns become a playoff team?
They've actually gotten over 500 past couple days.
They're 27 and 26. Phoenix is in 10th place in the Western Conference. Memphis is in 9th place in the Western Conference. Portland is in 5th. And LaMarcus Aldridge is leading that team without Greg Oden, without Brennan Roy. I mean, that's all they have is LaMarcus Aldridge. And then they have Wesley Matthews, who's come on amazingly this year.
They have Nicholas Batum.
I don't know who that is. Oh, Batum. No, I thought I didn't know that was his name. I always called him Batum. So,
you really need to learn how to pronounce some of these names.
I know it's pretty bad. When you're looking at the teams, I just find it really hard to say anyone was snubbed. There were guys who should have been looked at maybe more, but I mean, really, who on that Western Conference team are you going to take off?
Really, there's not anybody. And
I mean, and that's the thing. That's just how loaded the West is, and the fact that LaMarcus Aldridge is having a crazy year this year. Steve Nash still doing what he's doing. He's underlooked because his team has fallen off as compared to what it was the last couple of years. Zach Randolph, he's playing well. He was hurt at the beginning of the year, so that might have affected things. And he's with the Grizzlies, so that obviously affects things. So then when we look at the teams going against each other, I think the East is going to win this year, but I think it's going to be really exciting.
I'm very excited because I'm there's so many guys who can do so many things in this game that are going to make it really really interesting. And The funny thing is, and I just noticed this, of the two teams, Western Conference is the only team that has, first year All Stars, and it has three. Russell Westbrook and Blake Griffin and Kevin Love are all in their first All Star game. I think those three guys are going to make this game, a little bit more exciting. Russell Westbrook is playing out of his mind. For most of the year, he's been playing better than Durant. But honestly, I think this is going to be one of the best All-Star games in recent memory. However, Eastern Conference starters are the best starters since probably the 80s.
Yeah, this team is loaded, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think this game is just going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I think it's going to be a tight game. It's going to obviously be East. East has the most talent in their starting five. I think at the end of the game, if it comes down to it, you've got enough players that can play lockdown D to stop the scoring that is going to presumably come from the Western Conference. I also think the Eastern Conference may have an advantage because they have enough players on the same teams that they're going to know their teammates' tendencies. They're going to be able to really anticipate what their teammates can do. So I think that's going to be a real advantage for the Eastern Conference is, even though I don't think there's as many teams represented, I think it's going to be really solid for them to have as many players on the same teams because they're going to be able to understand what the other players on the court are going to do.
So that does it for this show. Next week, definitely going to be bringing a All-Star recap Monday or Tuesday. NBA trade deadline is next Thursday, which could be huge with the simple fact that Carmelo is still floating out there. And
it could also be completely, laid back because nobody actually wants to spend all that Denver wants for Carmelo. So
yeah, we're going to try and bring you a show Monday or Tuesday recap. We're going to try and look ahead to the trade deadline, see what kind of stories are floating out there, maybe some trades, come about this weekend, and then trade deadline ends. I believe it's Thursday night at midnight, and then that following weekend or that following week, we'll be able to come back and bring something about the trade deadline. Hopefully it's not a complete dud, but that's what we have to look forward to for the next week or so. So for that, this has been Sports Chat. I've been your host, Matt Muncy.
This is Brock Stafford. Peace.